How much scatter terrain do you think I can make in 3 days? Over under 30 things. Put your answers in the comments and don't cheat, because I understand that you're watching this video, which means you're going to be able to see how much before me recording this. Today and tomorrow and the next day, I'm going to try to make as much terrain as I can. So I want a couple of big, impressive pieces, but a lot of this is going to be smaller, scatter terrain, rocks, trees. I just need to fill out a board as quickly as possible. Let's drink some coffee and get started. Today is 9:53 in the morning on December 3rd. A little later than I wanted to start this project, to be honest with you. You see, my day job is as a freelance animator and illustrator. And this year, thankfully, has been busy. And what feels like the first time in a very long time, I don't have any freelance gigs booked this week. Some friends of mine and I started a campaign last year. It was going really strong last year, through the winter, through the spring of this year. But once the summer hit, we all got real busy and we put the campaign on a temporary hold. The gang is getting back together in 2 weeks, and I have made some scatter terrain for this campaign, but I have really been dragging my feet. I've been busy with YouTube, I've been busy with work, so why not kill a bunch of birds with one stone, or as my brother likes to say, feed 2 birds with 1 scone. And kind of tackle all of these problems at once. So I'm gonna take the next couple days to make as much terrain as I can. Nondescript enough that I don't necessarily know what is going to happen next in the campaign, but useful enough for our DM to set up at the time of the game. And yeah, that's kind of my goal, is to make multi-purpose, but interesting looking scatter. Now that I've finished rambling, it is now 9:58. Let's get started. Another goal I have for this scatter speed run, as I'm calling it, is just to use up a lot of these scrap materials. I have this entire bin that I store under my couch with tons of scrap materials, and honestly, I haven't really made a dent in it. I also have all these plastic pieces that I've labeled as barrels, although the blue ones are, I don't know what they are. I found them from a thrift store. And I have these wooden barrels as well. I start with these and a bunch of the scraps from the bin I showed earlier to just make a bunch of groupings of boxes and barrels and crates. These are going to be pieces of scatter that you could see on a dock or in a field or in a basement somewhere. This is just kind of boxes, tarps, rope, as you see me pulling out here. I kind of just wanted a variety of material and a variety of groupings of those materials, to make some interesting, unique crates and boxes, things like that. You'll notice the rope and the pieces of paper towel. Those I'm going to soak in glue and make them look like a big tarp or piece of fabric thrown over these groupings, which is why some of the XPS foam is very rough looking, because as you can see here, I plan to cover it entirely with the paper towel. To add a little bit more detail to this, I took some smaller chunks of XPS foam and quickly hot glued some pieces of coffee stirrer on all the sides of these to just make some quick and dirty crates. These are going to be integrated into the little groupings, as I'm calling them, so that there's a difference in texture. We've got the wooden barrels and those kind of more modern looking barrels, the crates with the cloth over them, and then this is just one additional wooden texture that I thought would add, a fun variety to the mix here. They're not perfect. You could add another, bar on the edges to add more detail, but I was fine with this. It is 11:14, a little later than I wanted it to be, but I have finished with making all the groupings. These I'm going to kind of glue into some of these groupings. Maybe I'll make a few extra groupings with these crates. Some of them I'm going to wrap in paper towel to make them look like little packages, heaps of different types of things. Again, the goal of this is to make it look good, but fast. I still have to glue all of these arrangements together. I need to make this paper towel look like cloth, which I've done a bunch on this channel, but if you're curious of my method, you will see that shortly. I'm gonna break and take a quick lunch and then get right back to it, finish these up. I mean, this is gonna be at least, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 groupings. Did I go way too low on the 30 over? I mean, I'll be right, but side bet. And also, these aren't really bets because I'm not going to win anything by being right. But over under 75. Over under 75. That seems ridiculous. But I already have 10. And I still have over 2 days. Okay, I'm going to break for lunch. I'm really excited about this. Back from lunch. 30 minutes exactly, might I add. Not too bad to cook and eat lunch. But back to these groupings of crates I go. I used super glue, tacky glue, Elmer's glue, just whatever it called for, whatever the material called for. If you use super glue, make sure you're using foam safe super glue if you are using foam. I also think I used hot glue at some point, kind of just looking to get these as quickly glued together as possible while still having some structural stability. There you can see me dotting on some accelerator and giving a quick prayer to the super glue gods to hope that those plastic barrels stay glued. Speaking of glue, there's a mixture of, I believe, matte Mod Podge, but you can use any Mod Podge or PVA glue here, and a bunch of water. You dunk the paper towel. You can also do this with just actual fabric. And then you drape it on how you want it to dry, and it dries super hard and looks exactly like draped fabric, but is durable, paintable. I love this technique. It's so simple. It's a little messy, but it dries so nicely and really looks like fabric. Here are all the little groupings glued together. I also threw some net I had from some strawberries, I believe, from the farmer's market to look like little fish nets. These aren't all supposed to live on a dock, but I couldn't help but add this fun detail. 121. Not great. Making those crates was fast in the sense that I made a lot, but like I've only made one item on my list of things that I wanted to make. So I'm going to switch gears and pivot to kind of a slam dunk. I have a bunch of bigger pieces of scrap XPS foam on my couch over there, like this. Right now I'm going to carve a bunch of it up and make some rocks. I also have a bunch of corks that I've been saving, and I'm going to make some columns out of the corks, probably some broken ones out of the cork because they break like kind of beautifully. And then also some bigger ones. Yeah, let's do that. I suppose I don't always need to queue up these shots because you're going to see me doing them. But yes, as I said in the previous clip, I started carving some rocks. I quickly realized that using these scraps, while something I really felt like I needed to do, it also didn't allow me to make bigger rocks because they were all kind of small triangular pieces. So I just glued some together. I didn't mention this in the little clip before this, but I also had this big styrofoam skull, and I wanted to use this to make one bigger, impressive centerpiece for this set of terrain. I carved a little bit off the side and thought I could use some more of that scrap XPS foam I was using for the rocks to make a rocky sort of base on one side of the skull. My idea for this is not based on any particular story. I just thought it would be cool to have a big, giant skull for 28 or 32 millimeter scale and look like it's just coming out of the ground and is all rocky. This took a while, as evident by that time check. Then I moved on to the columns with the corks, like I mentioned. Some I kept super short, some I glued two together, and then I glued them on this little stack of circular pieces of wood. I have so many discs like this. I have wooden ones, I have metal ones, I have old poker chips. I have a huge collection, and this little stack here felt perfect for the bottom of the columns. Here are a couple more of the rocks that I carved off camera. I just did the columns. I took a break for a little late food break, and now I'm back to finishing the rocks. As you can see, there are a lot of gaps because these are scraps of foam. There's also a lot of gaps on this big, beautiful centerpiece skull thing. This was so fun to just cobble together, like truly so much fun. So I'm going to mix up a few batches of Sculptamold, get all these gaps filled. I think for the smaller rocks, and the pink XPS on this guy, it probably will be enough. But I do have water putty. I don't really know what it is used for. Let's see. Furniture repairs. Patches, plaster. Patches, plaster. Right, it took me a minute to realize patches can be a verb. I think I'm going to make a pretty thin amount of this to slap on where you can see the styrofoam texture. I really don't want that to be coming through. Shout out to Trent Holbrook for using this in one of his recent videos. That is where I discovered this material. I feel like I shout out Trent a lot. I do watch other creators' videos as well. He just puts one out every day, so I find myself often learning new techniques and materials from him. I'm also going to do a quick texture with the tin foil. You don't need to see that. You get how this works. You take rock, boom, 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 texture. That's right. We love texture here at JunkDrawer Studio. And by we, I mean me, because it's just me. But yeah, I took the sculpt mold, and the goal here was, like I said, just to fill the gaps in between the janky pieces of XPS. I don't always use this when I carve rocks out of XPS foam, but I definitely wanted to in this instance because I used all the scrap pieces, so there are a ton of gaps. I pushed it into all the places where there are said gaps and made sure on this skull in particular that it kind of ran up the side a little bit. I really wanted this skull to feel integrated into this rocky terrain, so to add a little bit more life and storytelling to this scatter piece. Here I am dotting on a thin layer of that water putty. I, at this point, have no idea how this is going to work and if it's really going to cover like that styrofoam texture, but it actually works remarkably, which you'll see shortly. 4:15. I got the water putty on all of these bad boys. I'm not going to touch them because they are still wet. I do have an engagement this evening, so I will probably be calling it in an hour or two. And I plan to get up pretty early tomorrow morning to hit the ground running, create some more stuff. It's looking like I'm going to have to save painting and final details for Friday. Will I hit 75 individual items? I don't know. But I feel like I can knock out a few more things today at least. So with my limited time, I decided to do a pretty simple task for this next batch. I took all these little animal toys that I had, particularly dragons and any that kind of looked statuesque, because we're making some statues. The XPS cuts here are very random and very janky because, once again, the theme of this video loosely is how much of my scrap material can I use. But I think I managed to make some nice blocks of marble or brick for these statues. I then go in with a pencil, and admittedly off camera I did the rest of them with an actual X-Acto blade because the pencil wasn't really cutting it. But I just eyeballed in some texture. Off camera, I also textured with tin foil and widened the gap of the bricks a little bit with a dull sculpting tool. 5:30. Some of these look awesome though. I think this one especially just, I don't know, looks really cool. These are basic, but like, they're gonna be really cool all together. So, day one, I'm gonna wrap up soon, but I've made these statues, 5 of them, and all the cork columns are on that table, as well as the skull, centerpiece, and the rocks, and the crates. I'm kind of curious if the crates are dry. Let's see. You can kind of see on some of them that it looks like they're drying because you can see some of the XPS foam underneath. This has been a pretty productive first day. I'm really excited to see what I can finish tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 21, 22, 23, 30 things exactly. So I'm definitely going to be over the original 30. I might be able to hit 75. Okay, quick interruption for the segment I've been calling the question of the video. Today's question: where do you watch YouTube? How do you watch YouTube? And who do you watch YouTube with? Do you watch it with family, a partner, by yourself, friends? Do you watch it on your TV, on your phone, on your computer? Do you watch it first thing in the morning? Do you watch it on like weekends only, on your lunch break, at work or school? I want to know. YouTube actually provides a lot of these answers for me, but I want to hear it from you. I just like getting to know my audience and having conversations down in the comments. So if you'd like to answer this question, please leave your answer in the comments below. And one more thing before I go, if you missed my last video, rather than a question for you, I asked you to ask me a question. I'm putting together a small Q&A, so if you have any questions that you have for me, feel free to leave those for me in the comments below and I'll make sure to answer your question in my Q&A. Back to the video. All right, day 2, 8:20, December 4th. Based on my voice and my general demeanor, you would think it was even earlier, but I didn't wake up as early as I wanted to. Here are some things I want to make. I want to make some bushes, a couple different types of trees. I do kind of want to make some walls, maybe like some ruined walls for outside. I would like to make normal walls for inside. I do have some dungeon tiles that I made a long time ago that you'll see in the grand reveal most likely, but I don't have walls. That all feels doable. Some stuff that could be extra if I have more time. I would like to make some ladders and platforms. I would love to do a bunch of little bookshelves. So that's basically it. I have an even longer list of things that I could do. The ones I highlighted in green and yellow are the ones that I read to you, but I have a much longer list. So let's get building. I started the morning off with the bushes. If you watched my JunkDrawer series or my graveyard diorama supercut video, you might remember this technique, but essentially I took some rope and dotted the ends with a ton of super glue so that they would be glued together just at the end. This is very important. Shout out to Hans Wargaming for the technique. This, while looking very similar because it's the same rope, is a different technique for the trees while the trunks of the bushes dried. I separated a bunch of twine, that very same rope that I used to make the bushes, and separated it into some very thin threads. This took actually a really long time. Forgive me for jumping around. I wanted the edit to be chronological in the order that I actually did things, but I do jump between many different parts of this build. I have separated this many out of that pile. And I mean, I don't know, like I'm comparing it next to Colonel Mustard. It feels like it's tall enough. So I could probably make a lot of trees out of that one pile. I'm also just realizing I haven't told you the technique yet. If what I've made thus far is enough to make one tree, I could make like 5, 6, 7 trees out of this. So let's see. Yeah, good idea, because you're probably actually wondering what the heck I'm doing. So this is another technique that I actually had been playing around with because I had seen it in the past, but literally as I was recording this, Eric's Hobby Workshop released a video using this exact technique as well. So that was a huge help. Basically, you take a drill, some wire, some pliers. Be careful with this. You put the twine or string or really anything you have that can be made into tree limbs, and you twist it like so. So you do need a power drill and some pliers, but it's really easy. And then you just trim it into tree shape after you have this kind of wiry amalgamation of thread. It looks complicated, but it's actually super fun, and the results are pretty awesome if I do say so myself. I do have room to improve, but honestly, I was like laughing doing this because it was so fun and they came out so cute. Okay, yeah, it's worth it. This is awesome. I don't mind that they're scraggly. I'm going to paint them up with the airbrush, probably tomorrow, maybe tonight. And I think they're gonna look really good. All right. I have made 5 trees. I got better as I went too. This was the first one I did. I realized I needed a little bit more thread to make it a little less scraggly and a little bit more full. And this is the last one I made. I mean, it's still very scraggly now that I'm seeing it on camera, but it's much fuller and you can kind of tell. I made these small ones. I made 2 that were a little bit bigger. This is the second one I made, you can tell, but I got a lot fuller on this one. They're slightly taller. And then I made a 5th one that is bigger. Like this is the second tallest, and then this one is the tallest one. So yeah, I've got 5. My desk is a mess with fibers. I think these look really good and are gonna look good painted up. But is 5 trees really enough to fill out a board? Not really. So here's what I was thinking. I actually completely forgot. I had these model railroad trains that I bought for $8.50 from a thrift store a while back. They were originally $12. I feel like they should have been discounted a little bit more, but they are brand new, never taken out of the box. Now, as you can see, they are snowy. So I'm gonna rebase these. I'm also gonna paint them in the same color that I paint my trees, with the thinking that they will match a little bit. But I think the texture being slightly different is actually going to play really nice to look, because, you know, in real life, you don't have one type of tree usually. They're pretty good as is. I've seen a lot of fake trees, and these are some of the better ones for sure. Back to the bushes. I hope you're not having trouble keeping up. I know I'm going back and forth, but this is the part of the process where you really have to trust the process. You dip the entire piece of rope into some glue and water, heavily diluted with water. And you just kind of tease apart the rope until you have these crazy spiky bush thingies. They dry really hard too, and they're easy to add flock onto at the end. I moved on to check out the skull at this point. I wanted to add a little bit more texture, but you can see how the water putty dried, and it looks awesome. You can't see the styrofoam texture at all. I know this is kind of weird to insert into this bush and tree section, but again, this is the exact chronological order that I did these things in, so I'm keeping it as such in the edit. I added some bigger rocks and some finer railroad ballast. This is, again, just to add some texture to the upward-facing parts of the skull where I feel like there would be dirt and sand and grass accumulated. Back from lunch. It's 12:57. Not great. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next thing, and you're not going to judge me for having a messy desk. Don't judge me. I will clean it. I will clean it later. And the next thing is the ruined walls. This was going to be fun because I kind of hate measuring, and the whole idea of a ruined wall is it doesn't have to be perfect. So I cut a bunch of wall-shaped bits of this 1/2-inch XPS foam, and I just grouped them together to make some little angled pieces of ruined wall. I eyeballed in some brick lines. I mean, I used a ruler, but I didn't like measure the width of the bricks or anything. And here I truly did just eyeball the little individual edges of the bricks and textured it up in the same way that I did the rocks and the statues. 'Tis 3:58, and I have finally finished all the walls. Kind of just glued bits together. Here is what they all look like. I might add a little bit more detail to these walls, but this is kind of a low priority thing. I thought it would be cool to just like stack up like some fallen bricks like in the corners. Since most of this terrain is outdoor terrain, I really need an outdoor board. I'm supposed to go to a run club tonight, which is at 7. It's 4 o'clock. Back at like 9. I didn't end up going to the run club. I value health and exercise a lot, actually, but I am not passionate about anything nearly as much as I am about making cool stuff, so I simply had to stay and get this done. Apologies for the stuttery time lapse. It's almost over. But I just took the trees and some XPS foam and made 4 groupings of the trees on their own little patch of grass. I think these are going to be really cool and add a lot of character to the table. Back to the bushes, they have hardened wonderfully. They are a little wild, so I did take some clippers and trimmed them up quite a bit just into more pleasant, bushy shapes. These are also basically small trees, I suppose. It kind of depends on the terrain and the climate and the location. You can call them bushes, you can call them trees, it doesn't really matter. I glued them each to their own little base of XPS foam as well, used some extra quick drying tacky glue, and glued in some little bits of clump foliage that I had. This one in particular has little bits of twine coming out of it, which I thought was cool and added to the kind of brambliness of these bushes. I sealed them in with some spray tack or scenic cement, I don't know which one it was, and some isopropyl alcohol just to break the surface tension and help all the glue seep in. Back to the walls, I took a ton of extra textured bricks that I had from previous projects and glued them up like I mentioned I wanted to earlier. I just wanted a little bit of variation to these walls. I didn't want them to look like they were carved out of one piece of XPS foam, even though the main structure was. This is a very weird purple texture paste that I made with sand and kinetic sand from my previous video. If you haven't checked it out, I made a diorama exclusively from items I found at a thrift store, which explains why I used kinetic sand in this texture paste. But it worked. It worked really well in that project, and I had a bunch left over, so I used it here as well. 10:44, December 4th. I think I just got finished with everything I wanted to do today. Primed everything black that needed priming. I also airbrushed the trees. The bases still need paint, of course, and grass, but the trees look really cool. So I'm feeling good. I got all the trees. I've got all the other stuff primed. I still want to make a big green board to like stage everything on and to like use in D&D to use a lot of this outdoor scatter, because I think I mentioned a lot of the dungeon tiles I already have are like stony, but I need some grass. That's the end of day 2. And the next clip you see will be in the morning. Everything that I primed last night looks awesome. All the walls, the rocks, the pillars, the statues and the crates. Ignore that trash, that's going out. The trees, big trees, skull, and yeah, more of that. Finally, we're on to the painting phase. I love painting. I love bringing everything to life. For the rocks, I wanted to try something a little bit different, nothing mind-blowing, but I usually do a pretty standard grayish rock. I wanted these to be a lot more warm, just to add some warmth and some color. So I used some gray, but I also added some brown as a base coat. I wanted to do something different for the walls as well, instead of just your standard gray. So for those, I added some blues. They end up being more subdued than what you see here, but again, I just wanted to add a little variation and a little pop of color instead of just your dreary gray walls and gray rocks. I did do gray though for the statues. Quick time check as I'm in the middle of painting. I added some brown to the base of the trees, and I added some brown really roughly on purpose to all the crates because I wanted that black shadow to come through. I wanted these to look a little gritty and shaded. I did a similar kind of brownish treatment to the pillars, column thingies, but I did them in more of a mottled way by just kind of beating the brush against the column so that it kind of looked more stony. I don't know if that really had that effect, but I liked it enough. I then went into all the pieces that you just saw me paint and used progressively lighter colors to dry brush and bring out the details, catch the edges, and really make these pop. Loving how these are coming out so far. I've never made these kind of warm brown rocks, and I think they're going to be my formula going forward because these look awesome and just full of life with all the different colors on there. The crates were looking awesome too. I do end up picking out some of the details of the crates with some additional colors to make them stand out a bit. For the statues, I painted all the animals a dark bronzy copper color as a base. Here I am picking out Some of the colors of the crates, like I just mentioned, I would be doing with some watered down contrast paints and shades from Citadel. Adding a pop of blue, I think I had yellow somewhere, yeah, and more of a richer brown to the wooden parts. We're about midway through day 3, and I'm really loving how all these initial paint jobs are coming along. To add a little bit more fun detail, I want to add some green rust to all the statues. I've done this in videos before. I just slap it on, and then with a wet paper towel, I kind of brush some of it off. It's 3:44. I really was hoping I could make more things today, but I still have a lot to do. I still have to paint, it's hard to see, but the entire skull centerpiece. I have to flock all the bases of the trees and the bushes. And now you just saw me do a lot of the coloring and dry brushing of all of these other elements, but I still feel like they need a little bit more character. Something about these is just, they look cool. Maybe a little bit of like moss will help, but they're not really popping as much as I want them to. I think the rocks look really good. Those I'm really stoked about. I think these also look pretty good. They're a little muddy, but I like them. What I want to do is add maybe a couple little details to the barrels with the little holes on top. I don't know, it's kind of a low priority thing, but I would like to do that. And then finally, what I'm about to do first, before any of that, is to add a little bit of Athonian camo shade to the base of the walls. So a little bit more stuff to do today, but I think we'll get through it. I really just can't help myself when it comes to this kind of camo shade wash. I love this one from Citadel, but you can also just make it with water and some acrylic ink. I love adding that kind of mossy green look to stone. To pump up those columns, I splotch on just some more colors, a desaturated pink and blue, and I'm a little bit happier with it now. I used a goldish color to do a quick dry brush on the statues to bring that metallic back on some of the top surfaces. 4:05, I just start painting the skull. This I just went ham with. I didn't really take that much care. I just slapped a bunch of color on, knowing it was going to be kind of muddy and messy. I knew that I would end up liking that. I did that on purpose. I mean, yes, I did it to save time, but I think it's a totally valid painting method. I'll show you more of the skull a little bit later. After that base coat dried, I moved on to the trees. I glued a couple little beads in some of them to make little fruit trees, and I thought those looked really cute. I didn't do it to all of them, but I'm glad I did it to some. Here I am adding a bunch of glue and flocking to the bases of all the trees. You've seen me do it before, you've seen others do it before. I just glue a bunch on and then seal it all in with scenic cement. Back to the skull, I also continued to just go ham on it. This was kind of a fun technique I sort of developed with trial and error, where I used a brown wash that I made myself with ink as a water. Like, I used black paint into the recesses and then dipped my brush in the wash and kind of wiped away some of the paint like I would with water normally. I'm not explaining it super well, but I love the effect that it had. I also started to make those grassy battle boards that I had mentioned by just cutting some 1-inch grids into 3 pieces of foam board. All right, here's the deal. 6:37. I have a little bit left to do in terms of what I had kind of planned to do today, or at least what I had planned and then started today. But then I reminded myself, this isn't a challenge to see if I can make 75 terrain pieces in 3 days. This is a challenge to see just how much I can make in 3 days. So as much as I wanted to get to 75, there's actually no way at this point. I'm very tired. I don't want to burn myself out. This has been really fun though. So here is where I'm going to leave it. But I never said I couldn't finish my plan for the final reveal. I was very tired when I recorded that previous clip, so I'm not sure I explained myself properly, but basically I'm leaving it here in terms of all of the terrain that I already made, but I'm absolutely going to finish a couple more details and those battle boards So while it doesn't count towards the final tally, which I will tell you at the end, here is a montage of me finishing up all of the assets in a future day. I didn't do it in the original 3 days. Yeah, I forgot to film me adding the flocking, but you'll see what those look like in a moment in the final reveal. First, I just want to say that's the build. Thank you so much for watching. This was a really fun one. This was a really fun exercise of how much stuff can I get done quickly, but also that looks good, that I'm proud of. I do have some final glamour shots at the end. Here are some photos of me playing with this terrain in the D&D campaign when we finally picked it back up. I filmed this before that, of course, but now I'm filming this outro and uploading the video after that session has already taken place, and the party loved it. It was a huge success. We had a lot of fun in that session. And I know you're curious what the final count was. Drum roll. I'll put it in post. Can you tell I've never played the drums before? Ta-da! I'm also going to put the number in post because I haven't counted yet. Let me know if you guessed this exactly. You won't get a prize, but it would be kind of cool. And now rapid fire, all the last little housekeeping stuff I want to mention. First, if you're watching this at the time of upload, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. If you don't, I hope you're having a lovely any holiday that you're celebrating and or a lovely holiday season or whatever season it is in the part of the world where you reside. If you liked this video, I've made a few videos where I made Scattertrain that I think you might be interested in. Check out the playlist linked up here. And finally, if you want to support me, the best ways you can do that currently are just watching, sharing, liking, hyping this video. If you want to donate monetarily, I don't have a Patreon, but you can donate via a super thanks down below. I'm always going to say when I add that, you do not have to give me your hard-earned money, but if you choose to, just know it goes towards making better and more frequent videos for you guys, and I appreciate the support so much. Huge thanks to these lovely people who did do a super thanks since last video. If those names sound familiar, that's because this is the second super thanks from all three of those people. So thank you guys so much. You're never required to donate to me, but it will go towards making awesome videos for you, and I'm very much appreciative. So thank you so much. Okay, I think that's everything I had to say. Next up is the final reveal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope everyone has a healthy and happy New Year's, and I will see you in January in the next video.